I like to talk about three teams now that I think may be good early season values. What I mean by that is I think these teams are a little bit overlooked right now, underrated, and they have the type of schedules early in the season where they could rack up some wins and, more importantly, some covers. I like to start with the Kansas City Chiefs. I do expect the Chiefs to be much improved this year. Of course, I'm not alone in that assessment. The Chiefs are sort of a trendy pick to be much better, to be a pretty good team this year. Remember, they were 2-14 last year, tied with Jacksonville for the worst record in the NFL. But there's a couple of reasons for optimism. Number one, they play in a bad division. Denver's a notable exception, of course, but the other two teams in that division, San Diego and Oakland, are both going to be terrible this year, most likely. So the Chiefs could rack up some wins there. Also, Andy Reid coming over from Philadelphia. I know last season the bottom really fell out in Philadelphia, but Reid had a whole lot of success. There's a lot of people, myself included, who think that Reid hasn't lost his touch yet and will be able to have some success in Kansas City this year, primarily because there's some talent around. I know we brought in Alex Smith. I'm not necessarily talking about Smith. I'm talking about some of those skill position guys like Jamal Charles, Dwayne Bowe. I like Dexter McCluster. I know he hasn't been utilized very much in Kansas City yet, but I think Reid might find a way to get him the ball. And there's some talent on the defense as well. So Kansas City has some players. The cupboard is not bare. I like them particularly early in the season when there's still going to be some people that have that 2-14 year fresh in their minds, and they're going to be underselling the Kansas City Chiefs a little bit, I think. They open the year on the road in Jacksonville. I expect the Jaguars to be the single worst team in the NFL this year. It could be Oakland. It could be Buffalo. I expect it to be Jacksonville. But because this game is on the road, the Chiefs will not be a big favorite. The number will be reasonable. BETDAQ does not have a market up on the game yet. Don't expect that for another few days. But I like Kansas City in that game. I think Kansas City will win. Again, I expect that number to be reasonable. I think they're going to have an excellent chance at a cover. Next week, they host the Dallas Cowboys. Dallas, an unpredictable team. The Cowboys will most likely be favored in that game, so you'll have the chance to get on the Chiefs as a home dog. Then the third week of the season, the Chiefs travel to Philadelphia to play the Philadelphia Eagles. Andy Reid going back home, that is obviously going to be the big storyline. And the Eagles getting a whole lot of press this offseason because of Chip Kelly's offense. And just like everybody else, I'm excited to see Chip Kelly's offense, what they can do. But I think what a lot of people might be overlooking about the Eagles is they're going to be really bad on defense. You look at their personnel, you've seen them a little bit this preseason. I do not think the Eagles are going to be good on that side of the ball. I do not think they're going to be able to stop people. So, hey, I'm not saying Kansas City is going to be able to go up there and beat Philadelphia in Week 3. I'm sure the Eagles will be favored in that game, but it might be a spot to look at Kansas City there. Again, I don't expect the Eagles to be good on the defensive side of the ball. I think Kansas City will be able to have some success on offense. And depending on what we see from the Philly offense and the Kansas City defense over the first 2 weeks of the season, obviously that will determine the line here. But just be wary of the Kansas City Chiefs. Look at Kansas City throughout the first month of the season, really. At Jacksonville, Dallas, at Philadelphia. I expect Kansas City to cover at least 2 out of those 3 games. Next team I want to talk about is the Houston Texans. Now, I think a lot of people forget, because of the way the Texans ended last season, and no doubt they fell flat on their face at the end of last season, the regular season, and then in the playoffs. They did beat Cincinnati in the wild card round, but getting blown out by New England. And really, the Texans had no business playing that wild card round to begin with. If they'd have just taken care of business in December, they would have had a bye. They could have locked up home field throughout the playoffs. They just did not look like a good team in December and January. I think that's fresh in a lot of people's minds. Indianapolis, a popular dark horse upset pick to unseat the Texans in the AFC South this year. I'm not sure I'm feeling that. Remember, the Texans, through 12, 13 weeks of the season last year, they looked as good as anybody. They've got an experienced roster. Nearly everybody, all their core players return. I think the first month of the season. Now, I'm not saying when the Texans get into December again and the cold weather again and they're worn down again, maybe this team won't make a deep playoff run. Maybe this isn't. You notice if you saw our Super Bowl futures video we did a little while ago, the Texans were not one of the teams that I picked out that I liked as a potential Super Bowl bet. But I do like the Texans early in the year. You look at their schedule. They open the season on the road in San Diego. I think the Chargers are going to be terrible. But because it's the first game of the season, because that game is on the road, I think the line's going to be reasonable. Week 2, Houston hosts Tennessee. The Titans are going to be overmatched in that game. I expect the Texans to win handily. And in Week 3, Houston travels to Baltimore. The Ravens won the Super Bowl last year and dismantled that team. I do not look for big things from the Baltimore Ravens this year. Sitting here, obviously a lot can change. That's a month from now, but sitting here, I like the Texans in that game on the road in Baltimore. Now, after that, it gets really tough. 3 straight games against the NFC West. Who knows what's going to happen? Obviously, we see these injuries every week in preseason. Who knows what's going to happen during the first month of the regular season that's going to affect our opinions on these type of things. But as of now, when I look at the Houston Texans' first 3 games at San Diego, home Tennessee, at Baltimore, I think Houston, just like Kansas City, I think they cover at least 2 out of those 3 games. I think this is a team to look at early in the season. The third and final team I think you might want to keep your eye on as an early season value is the New York Giants. The Giants missed the playoffs last year, even though they did finish the season with a winning record. Nobody is talking about the Giants. In terms of the NFC East teams, all the talk is Philadelphia, Chip Kelly, that new offense, and the Washington Redskins. Robert Griffin's health. We've heard that Griffin is going to play Week 1. How effective will he be? Will the Redskins be able to replicate that offense that really took the NFL by storm last year, enabled Washington to win the division? Nobody's talking about the Giants. But the Giants have a quality team, especially on offense. They're going to be a lot more healthy on offense this year, they hope, having both Cruz and Nix. You forget, that might be the best wide receiver tandem in the NFL when they're healthy. Eli Manning has proven that he is an elite quarterback, one of the best 6 or 7 quarterbacks in the league. I think the Giants' running back situation this year is better than most people think. I like some of the young backs they have. They do need to improve on defense, no doubt about it. 2 years in a row. A couple of years ago, we all know how that turned out for the Giants, but still, statistically, they were not a good defense. Last year, statistically and otherwise, they were just a bad defense. They need to improve on that side of the ball, no doubt about it, but I think they will. Their history, a lot of their core personnel, we've seen play well before. I know we said that throughout the year last year. The Giants are the type of defense, it seems like they can turn it on when they want to. You never want to rely on that type of thing. But I think the Giants are a good team. I expect them to be back in the playoffs this year. You look at their first 4 games of the season. Their first game is on the road against the Dallas Cowboys. Now, that game always feels like a coin flip, especially early in the year. But certainly, the Giants going out and picking up a road victory, not out of the question. Week 2, the Giants host the Denver Broncos. Now, Denver might be the best team in the NFL this year, odds-on favorite to win the Super Bowl. However, if you're going to get Denver, Week 2 in your building sounds like a pretty good time to get them to me. We know about the injuries, Denver's defense, players like Champ Bailey banged up, not sure when he's going to be back, and of course, the Von Miller suspension. Von Miller going to miss the first 6 games of the season. Von Miller probably the best player on that defense. They lost Elvis Dumervil this offseason. They did pick up Sean Phillips, but without Dumervil or Von Miller and the possibility of being without a player like Champ Bailey in Week 2, you never know. Denver could be vulnerable at that time. That game could turn into a shootout. We don't know about Wes Welker's health. Denver's got problems at the center position. Listen, Denver doesn't have many problems this year. I expect them to be an excellent team once again. However, on the road against the New York Giants in Week 2, that could be a danger spot for the Denver Broncos. Week 3, the Giants go on the road to face the Carolina Panthers, a team they dominated last year. I do not expect Carolina to be that good this year. I think the Giants could get that game on the road. The spread is going to be within 3 points of pick, most likely. Week 4, the Giants go on the road to play the Kansas City Chiefs, a team that we talked about, a team that I like early in the season. But certainly, especially if I'm right and the Chiefs play well early in the season, say they beat Jacksonville and say they beat either Dallas or Philadelphia, have a 2-1 record, hosting the New York Giants, that game could be around pick. Chiefs might even be favored. Giants certainly can go on the road and beat a team like Kansas City. We've seen the Giants play well under Tom Coughlin on the road over the last few years. So those 3 teams, the Kansas City Chiefs, the Houston Texans, and the New York Giants, people are overlooking them a bit right now. Their first 3 or 4 games, very winnable. I expect the lines there to be reasonable. So keep your eye on these teams. Might be able to make some money here throughout the first month of the season.